Opportunity. The talk I'm going to be touching on today is rebuilding trust in a post-world trust. What do I mean by that? It's a who can we trust today, right? In this world, who can we trust today? For some of us, it's not so very extreme. When it comes to trust, it's very basic. It's something from the day we were born. We have our parents to trust. We have our society to trust. And everything we get involved, we have some kind of trust that we have a constant feedback from the environment. For me, the way I wanted to look at trust is something more deeper. As I was traveling from home today on the train, on the Evening Standard, there was a headline, "You are losing trust," in the context of Brexit. But everywhere you look, there's this massive erosion of trust. And then, recently, if you look at the Facebook scandal, Cambridge Analytica, and then the Me Too movement, and then you've got the Black Lives Matter, everything, there's this common thread that underpins, and there's that erosion of trust. For me, I wanted to talk about from my personal life story, and I wanted to somehow leave a message here in a way there is a trust that we can all fall into when things seem so impossible. So this is my father and my sister in October 1991. So I'm from Sri Lanka. That's me in the right next to my father. That was me about 11 years old. As you know, in Sri Lanka, there was a 30-year civil war. There was a lot happened. There were about 100,000 people got killed. In 2009, the war came to an end. So as I was a child, even though there was this chaos of warfare going around you, you don't notice it. It's something that your environment still feels very normal. Your day-to-day life is very normal. You go to school, you come back, you go to the paddy field, you're playing around. You go to temple in the morning, you come back. It's just very normal. And you have all your friends and you play, and you probably see a couple of shells just dropping by and you just pretend, okay, it's fine. It wasn't your turn to die today, right? Or, in the middle of the night, you'll get shells just keep on dropping literally 100 meters away, and you just literally need to wake up, blindly run so that you can save yourself. And then an hour later, they stop bombing, you come back and sleep, and you go to school next day. So that's what life was. But even within this chaos, you kind of trust within your environment. It's okay. There is a bigger force that's kind of protecting you and your environment. And then you carry on with your life as normal. So what happens is that one day, I was studying in a junior school, and my brother, he was 17 years old, he was studying in a senior school. Guerrilla warfare, randomly this shootings and gunfire breaks out. At one of those instances, gunfire broke out, and we were told from our parents, our trusted sources, whenever you hear gunfire, just run to a church or a temple or a mosque, stay there until everything just stops, and then we'll come and find you, right? One of those moments, the gunfire breaks out, my brother runs, and I run, and he dies in my arm. That was 1989. So if you think about the environments like that, it's very tough, right? But you have to trust the environment. Then my father finds out that there was something happened within close to the school. Then he makes the way there, and the military, because you can imagine the environment is very chaos. Then what happens is they take the body and they put them into a truck, and they take them back to the camp. Then my father comes in, asks me, "Where's your brother?" I say, "They take him back to the camp." Then he turns up to the camp and they say, "Can you release the body?" And they say, "No, we can't release the body." And just because the environment, how it goes at that time, when you're surrounded by war, they kind of lock him up for 3 months. And after 3 months, you can imagine, as a family, waiting for your father to come back, being locked up. You don't know what's going on. You're waiting. You're trusting the community. You're trusting the environment to kind of take care of you. So that was the image that after 4 months, there was a Red Cross went into the camp and they saw my father in a very bad state, and they kind of did some negotiations and went back and forth, and randomly one evening we saw a Red Cross van came towards our house, and the whole community just running towards to see what it is. We didn't know what was happening. So that was my sister and my father. That was the image that appeared in one of the magazines. And that's the kind of the overall image. That's me on the right and my brother on the left. And that's kind of the neighborhood, the people. Just to give you a little sense of what it is, right? So from that moment, as you can see, like my father's, well, you can't see one of the hands, probably on one of the images, you can see all the abuses, all the kind of tied, string hand marks, and you can see the kind of the nature of the beard, how long he's been inside, right? So that's what the environment was. I was 11 years old. Still, I haven't, so look, the way to think about it is when something like that happened in your hand, something like that happened very close to you, your brother being dying, there's two ways to think about that life. Either you go very extreme, you go towards hate, or either you just somehow, you just put the hope in love, right? Somehow you try to find some kind of inspiration. But then having said that, but I'm only 11 years old, it's very difficult to see both extremes. Because even when we are matured, having through 30 years of my life now, still I find it very difficult in certain situations to either look through love or through hope. So at 11 and 3 months later, my father decided that, you know what, you guys need to get out of the country. So he decided that I'm going to send you first. So I was the last in the family. I didn't have a mother, so you can imagine. So it's just my father, and we had like 3 brothers and a sister. So he decided that I must go first. At that time, I was about 11 and a half, 12 years old. There was 2 choices, right? You would expect, when a father decides, because a lot of parents in that environment, they don't even have that choice. They don't even have that financial means or kind of opportunity to even have that thought. You know what? Can I get my son out of the country? Right? My father, even though we weren't that financially wealthy, but he decided that I must get protect my children. So he decided that he must send me first. Those days, I was from north of Sri Lanka. So going from north of Sri Lanka to south of Sri Lanka, you can imagine this is the height of the war. Military everywhere, landmines everywhere, bunkers everywhere. You can't cross from north to south. The other one is, we were close to the South India, so the other way is to get a boat and leave. So the time that we were deciding which route to take, whether to go through India and then get a passport from India and then get to London or somewhere in Europe, or just somehow take a risk, go through all the jungles, landmines and the camps, somehow manage to make it to Colombo and then get a fake passport and then get out of the country. So there's 2 alternatives. So that night, I remember we went to bed thinking, okay, I'm very young, I'm hearing all the elders talking around me. And next morning I saw the whole community, those people there, they're running towards the ocean shores. And then as a child, you're always curious, why people are wailing, crying and running towards the shore. And I ran, and then as a child, you can imagine I was this height, and I'm holding on to someone, looking into the water in a hope that something is, maybe it's magical or something just to look into. But we saw a couple of babies floating around, right? Then we come back, you absorb that, and you come back and you kind of listen, you're young, you're listening to elders talking, and you find out that on the previous night, there were people who were traveling to India trying to cross, but the military or the Navy must have patrolled, and the smugglers must have asked the kids to get them into the ocean, because if they make any noise, either you had to decide whether all die or just we get rid of the children. So they were the choices they made. At that point, my father decided we're going to take you into the flight route. So then we decided there's a lot of hardship you go through. We managed to get to Colombo. We found a smuggler. We paid some money. Managed to survive a few days without military kind of coming into your hotel and taking you away. We kind of hid away in Colombo for a while, and then we managed to get to the airport. Right? Airport this was in 1990. Airport wasn't like a normal, you walk in, pass your passport check-in, there's a lot of military and there's a lot of chaos, paranoia because of the war, right? So I remember I was sitting there with this, ready to go. And my father just told me a story. He told me, you know what, I don't know if I'm going to see you for a long period of time, but whatever you do from here, make sure that you go and become something. So he told me a story in Tamil, which I'm going to translate. He said, whatever you do from here, try to become like a tree. Imagine 12-year-old sitting, seeing military everywhere with the guns, and the smuggler sitting here you just met a few days ago. You're sitting with a fake passport as a child, and that guy is my father. And I got my real father behind me. He's telling me a story, whatever you do from here, go out there and try to become like a tree. And I'm thinking, what do you mean, Daddy? What is a tree? I got so many things in my mind. And he said, imagine in Asian countries, when you're in a tree, men used to do this. They used to come and they look for a little wood and they try to urinate. He said, just imagine that you're a big tree and someone do that and you get very upset by it. And you say, you know what? I'm not going to grow into a beautiful tree. I'm not going to grow. I'm just going to be stubborn and not grow into this beautiful, leaves and the fruits that I'm blessed with. Instead, I'm going to stay like a tree. Instead, if you forgive that same person and grow into this beautiful leaves and trees, the same person, when it rains or storm, he'll come under the same tree and he'll say, what a beautiful tree. It's giving me shadow when I need it. Right? That's what life is. Go out there and make something. When you make something of yourself, that's when only you can become useful for something or someone in the environment. That's how my journey started. And then I was in my mind, thought I would be ending up in London, but this guy took me to Nairobi. So I'm 12 years old, landed in Nairobi. I was there for 1 year. 1 year later, again, they were looking for a mother figure for me. Found a mother figure and another passport, and managed to get to London. This agent dropped me in the airport, London Heathrow, and said, find your way. He said, go and hide in the toilet for 3 hours so that they don't know where you came from, and then walk towards immigration. So that's how my life started. So I walked towards the immigration, they took me in, they gave me a little blanket, then there's some places to live. At this time I was 13 and a half, 14 years old. So that's how my life started in London. One of the things I remember when I was little, I was a very smart kid. I mean, for me, I thought I was a smart kid. When you're young, you just feel this, this thing, you're unshakable, that feeling. Because, your environment is, you trust everything around you. You have this kind of environment, your parents you can trust. When you're struggling, you can reach out to your sister or your brother, You feel this, you have this force around you. I remember one of the teachers, he told me these things, Kieran, dreams are universal, opportunity is not. Whether you're a kid or you're born in Sri Lanka in this village, look around you, there's a lot of poverty around, there's war. Or whether you're a kid, you're born in Kensington or in Chelsea, the dreams of the kid is the same. It's just the opportunity of that kid is different, right? And I remember another teacher said, Kieran, I can see that you're very smart, you're working really hard, but you can see there's a lot of things going on in your life, but don't get distracted by it. You see a lot of your friends and a lot of the people that you hang around with, they're disappearing in the middle of the night, and next day you see them with guns, even though they're very young, but don't get, deluded by it. So one of the things he told me is make sure you always your face towards the sun, let the shadows fall behind you. That's one of the quotes from one of my favorite teachers in Sri Lanka. And the teacher I've recently been working very closely with is Professor Mohammed Yunus. I've been working with him for the last 5 years very closely, but I've known him for a very long time. One of the things that he says is, all of us here, or all of us in the world, every child is the seed of the tallest tree. What lacks is the soil base. So what the society does is that, just imagine yourself as we are all the seed of the tallest tree, and somebody give you a small pot of soil. And you put that seed into the small pot, but it will grow into this cute little tree. And everyone will just name it, wow, what a cute little tree. Oh, Kieran's a smart kid. But if you'd given a bigger soil base, just bigger soil base, it would have grown to this big tree. And again, you'll say, whoa, that kid is even bigger. Wow, he's smarter. There's nothing wrong with the seed. We're all the seed of the tallest tree. It's just the soil base that we provide is inadequate. Right? For me, those three things stuck with me throughout my journey in my life, from the day my brother was shot to landing in London alone at the age of 14 with a little shorts and like a small money in my pocket, walking towards the immigration lonely. Those three things stuck with me. And so for me, that's how my life started, right? So somehow I put trust in people when I was in Sri Lanka and I reached London. That's how my life started. Then they put me in a place in Walthamstow. It was in E17. Imagine just being 14 years old, not being able to speak the language. You got 1 year to pass like 12 GCSE. If you fail those, forget going to good university, getting a degree. And forget, forget even just waking up in the morning and someone telling you, look, get out of bed, go to school, you need to study, forget all that. You don't have all of that privilege, right? Somehow you have to motivate yourself. Somehow you walk into a school and say, you know what, I want to start studying, and that's how you start school. So I went to school, I did my GCSE, did okay, did my A-level, did okay. Then ended up in Imperial, I did my PhD. Then I decided that I want to go into banking. So that's how I started at Barclays Capital. I went to Singapore, I was in Hong Kong. Then I moved to New York with Morgan Stanley. I was running their global macro structuring. Then I moved to HSBC, I was looking after the hedge fund sales business. So that's my banking since 2002. That's my 16 years of banking career. But all this time, I have this emotional attachment with Imperial. So I've been coming back to Imperial, being lecturing it. Now I'm part of the business school. I'm on the advisory board, and also we're trying to launch a few things. So that's my association with my